Shahna Powell, and I live in California. My ranch is in California, so I am the owner of Royal Chinchillas, and I'm also the president of Global Chinchilla Alliance, which is a new nonprofit organization set up in the U.S. to develop a standard of care for chinchillas around the world. So today, like Maxine said, I'm going to talk about more in depth about malocclusion and all of the different things that can cause malocclusion. Everybody basically knows that it can be genetic, it can be passed from lines, but there's a lot of other reasons why chinchillas get malocclusion besides the genes. So we're going to go over that today.
所以像今天主要我们选的这个主题就是针对有一些经常我们会遇到的台湾这边问到的问题，就是牙齿的问题。很多兽医就是错误判断的把其实没有问题的牙齿讲得很恐怖，就把它判断于这个牙龈基因问题啊。所以我们今天要讲解剖一下这个错误的一些观念，然后让大家有一些比较基本能够自己断定，而不只是靠兽医的那一套讲法来决定要怎样医治你们的宠物，到底它真正有没有牙齿基因问题。
So on top of what Maxine was talking about, what makes chinchillas different, another thing that makes chinchillas different is their skull shape. So chinchillas have a unique skull shape that's specifically adapted to support their sensory functions and to support the continuous tooth growth. This structure also helps protect features like their ears and eyes while allowing room in their mouth for their teeth to grow. And these adaptations of the chinchilla are essential for their overall daily functions.
所以基本上这边刚才美心有略带过，就是所有牙齿会影响到它，而且你能够自己检测早期发现这牙龈问题，就怎么摸下巴能够发现得到，怎么看眼睛有没有泪水能决策得到。那它们的头颅形状，就是我们要重点的让大家认识一下。怎么样才算是一个没有问题的，没有牙齿问题的一个裸猫
？The next thing that's important to talk about is anisognatism. That big word basically means that their jaw on the bottom is wider than their jaw on the top. And this is important because this is what helps their teeth to stay ground down over time.
第二个点我们要讲的，让你们知道，就是它们的下方的牙的一个构造是比上方的宽。那以至于它宽的时候，它的这个磨合度跟平衡的去咬合的这一块是。才会吻合到，你会意识到，就是下方的牙是会往外一点，上方呢会再往内侧平衡。
Chinchillas also have really well-developed lacrimal ducts. Right there. These play a critical role in the eye health. So the lacrimal ducts help the drainage and help push out and clear and keep clean the eyes. So this is really important in dusty environments. Healthy tear ducts reduce the risk of eye infections and keep their visions sharp and clear.
那第三点要讲到的就是，我就不解说那些名字了，就我们以简单来解说，就是这个类道。类道就是有健康的类道，才促使于他们能够 很好的护着他们的眼球，因为泪水排放的量能够促使润化眼球，也能够促使到他们滚沙时候不小心轻易进入到眼睛内的一些沙子或一些不明物体，能够以泪水的量来冲淡，而达到他的眼睛的一个健康。
And then tympanic bullae, it basically encases the ear structure for its enhanced hearing.
然后再来头颅，当然我们就直接五官嘛，眼睛讲完了，我们讲这个耳朵。耳朵这边它也有细细的相连到你的下巴的这个接骨的部分，所以耳朵的健康也会间接性被不好的牙发炎而影响到。
And lastly, the infraorbital foramina is the openings for the blood vessels and nerves to support the facial sensitivity.
最后一点就是它们主要的全部在头颅的血脉，基本上是开放式的，就是开放式的意至于就是它们是有感觉的，就像一个感应机之类的穴道，跟身体其他部分的血脉的感应度，它们是加强了好几倍。
And the reason that I brought this slide in for malocclusion is because one of the subjects that I'm going to discuss is craniofacial structure changes, and so that is how we are selectively breeding chinchillas to look the way that we want them to look versus the way that they're built to be healthy.
让大家解释到整个头颅所有器官在这头颅的应用和重要性的原因、形状这些，最大的原因就是我们要教导大家，买一只或培植一只正确骨骼形状的动物，而不是买一些商人想卖给你的一些动物，就是人工制造后天的一个形状。我们要的是他们原本健康，在自然生态之下，他们应该拥有的头颅跟整体的情况。
Okay, pass the really boring part into just the boring part. So this is basically just a view, an anthropocene 3D view of the mouth of a chinchilla. They have 20 teeth, one incisor, one premolar, and 3 molars per section. So 5 teeth on each section times 4 sections. They have no true anatomical roots, which is why they must constantly be chewing fibrous, hard materials to keep those teeth ground down and healthy.
所以这边就是一个它不是 X 光片，就是一个红外线的一个地图，那你才能很好的看到，不只是骨类，你也看得到很多血脉在流通的一些。所以刚才我所说，在练习的时候，我说就后面16颗，前面加多4颗，总共24颗。所以为什么一直到他们是源源不断的牙齿在生长？所以这个健康需要他们去磨合牙，而牙齿磨合是上下硬磨，而不是靠任何物体去磨它的牙齿，因为再怎么说木再硬，它很会断，那很意思说牙齿比木还要硬。木草更不用说，草更软，所以木草，兽医所说的要多吃木草，木草能磨牙，这个是我们逻辑上不成立的一个说法啊，这 他们多吃多咀嚼，以至于他们上下的牙的磨合性的次数更多，那导致牙与牙之磨法就变成这个比较健康的。
So what is malocclusion? Malocclusion is basically a catch-all term for improper alignment of the teeth. When the teeth do not align correctly, it causes pain and difficulties eating, and in severe cases, like the one on the far side, tooth overgrowth.
所以什么是这个牙齿基因的问题？就他今天我们会很详细的去给你看很多 X 光片，让你认识怎么样看一个 X 光片，能够自己去判断，大概需要找第三方来鉴定，到底真的是出了真正的问题，还是其实这是普通的一个正常的 X 光片，所以以至于就是当牙齿有问题的，就是你们的左边的这一张，然后右边这一张是没有问题健康的，你可以看得到它的中心点这一块的不同之处。
So what we see on the left is overgrown teeth in this region, unhealthy. The teeth do not align here, so there's uneven chewing. And when there is chewing, there's pain as there's extra pressure on the spurs that are exposed. And on the bottom, the teeth are growing out into the chin. These are the bumps that Maxine were talking about. And it's actually a hardened bone structure that is irreparable. It cannot be repaired.
对，主要就是往内往上长，还有往下长，还有就是不平的一个磨合，都是不健康牙齿的一个症状。
In contrast to the one on the right, this is the tear duct that comes down. The teeth, this is where the teeth need to be. You can see there's a nice flat chewing surface. You can see the nerves that run through, the pulp that runs through the teeth. This is a healthy chinchilla.
那就是意味着它们的排列也是很整整齐齐的。这并比左边的这张的话，你会看到一个比较歪曲的形状。那根部跟血脉这些是混杂的。那这里你可以看到很清澈的一片白，那边你会看到很多灰色地带，这些都是那个血动脉乱混杂的原因。
Sorry, I'm not as excited as Maxine, but this is a serious subject.
Don't worry. I added
Okay, so here's another example of bad teeth. There's a line drawn on this one that shows where the teeth should stop. And you can see here, this part that's sticking out right here is what you see when you look in a scope. And the teeth are very uneven, do not have that flat chewing surface. Those are a very unhealthy teeth.
所以你看 X 光片的话，基本上这个是它真正的照片，然后这是它的那个 X 光片。那我们要的健康牙齿是这黄线的停留度，它现在是已经过了这个黄线的，然后你看到的这个出来的这一块就是它那颗长出来的牙齿。
Okay, causes of malocclusion. As we mentioned before, it is genetic. That is one cause of malocclusion. So chinchillas can inherit dental problems from their parents, which is why accurate breeding records, and ethical breeders are so important. And basically what that means is if a chinchilla's family members have misaligned teeth, the chinchilla is more likely to have the same problem. What can happen is it can also be carried, in the line. So if you don't have a long history of the chinchillas, it can just be carried and then be mated up with another animal that's also carrying that gene with the propensity to malocclude. And you have an animal that will have malocclusion where neither parent has malocclusion. That's why records are so critical.
那首先谈到的就是对牙龈疾病的问题是基因的问题，基因的问题就是可以很严重，因为它能够遗传到下一代，所以Shahna的用意就是你需要有一个很长的族谱对之类的族谱之类的去看，就是哪一代发现问题啊？那当发现问题的时候，就是一定要终止这个族谱的往未来发展。
I'm going to spend a little bit of time on diet because next to genetics, diet is one of the biggest causes, I should say improper diet, is one of the biggest causes of malocclusion.
然后第二个引起这个疾病就是不能很好的吸收到营养的成果。这不代表说它基因没问题，它不会产生这个牙齿的问题。
In the wild, chinchillas eat big, thick shrubs. They eat very coarse, hard material. And the pellets that we use to feed our chinchillas are very soft and crumbly. So we need other things to mimic their natural environment, and how, like in the first slide, boring slide, when we were going over all the reasons that the school is developed the way it is, why it's so important to make sure you have those thick and fibrous materials for your chinchilla to chew on at all times.
在野生环境的龙猫，它们基本上在田野里找的食物都是偏硬的状态，因为都是比较干燥的一些食物。那它来到我们人类，我们饲主喂食的时候，我们都是把它们所有的原点找得到的一些植物来压缩成颗粒，压缩成颗粒，以至于它们打成粉状，然后才把它压缩，就变成说把原有的原材料把它做软的。
It's also really important to include hay, but the hay can't be like only just soft grasses. You need to have a hay that has more fibrous, stocky material in the hay. So in the U.S., and I'm sure that it's this way everywhere, we have different cuts of hay. The first cut is a very soft hay. The second cut has some of the soft hay left, and then some of the more stocky, fibrous hay. And the third cut is mainly that fibrous, stocky hay. I always strive to get the second cut because it kind of has a mixture of both. And I also augment with a lot of wood as well, but I will get into that later.
他要指出 I need to reiterate the first cut, second cut, and third cut because the perception in Asia, the first cut is actually the stocky hay. They did a wrong marker. So it is encouraged on the first cut, which is the hard one. It's different. I know what the Americans do. 所以在美国，他们的第一割、第二割跟第三割跟我们亚洲这里的见解是不同的，就倒了过来。除了第二是中立的以外，就是混合的，就是有一个软跟硬的平衡点。他们的第一割是软的，然后第三割是硬的。但我们了解的第一收割其实是硬的，然后第三收割是软的，但意味着不同地区他们的概念，因为亚洲这里没有人去种这些草，所以就变成说 他们理念是OK， 那这个植物生长的过程，头是比较多梗啊，然后过后越长越多叶子，所以他们觉得越割越多叶子就比较软，所以是有一点不同的解释方式，但就是说草不是辅助品，它是一个必需品。那最建议的就是Shahna最建议就是 second part 第二颗就有一个软硬兼顾，就达到了纤维能够吸收，也能达到磨牙的一个好性质。然后如果第一颗的话，就是所谓的很硬的梗只能磨到牙，不代表能够促进肠胃的一个消化。
And then on the second bullet, chinchillas need a good balance of both calcium and phosphorus in their diet to keep their teeth and bones strong. So there are several studies out there that show improper balance of these two minerals actually causes malocclusion. So really the ratio that we're looking to be at is 2 to 1. So 2 calcium to 1 phosphorus. And 1.5 to 1 is okay, but what they found is if you get to 2.5 to 1, the chinchillas exhibited a much higher rate of malocclusion.
所以第二点就是钙质的吸收，所以钙质的吸收能量取自于能够直接影响到牙龈的生长，那也就是特别高的或者不平衡的一个钙质范围内，它会促使这个疾病的发生。
And then the last real dietary contributors to malocclusion is high sugar. Chinchillas are not meant to eat sugary food. There's not a lot of sugary food available to them in their native environment. They don't have access to fruity, nutty, any of those types of seeds, or fatty seeds that are in a lot of the foods that we see, the cheap foods that we see in pet stores. But it's really best to avoid giving them treats with sugar because of the amount of the decay that happens on the teeth very, very quickly. To give you one case, I sold a very healthy chinchilla to a pet owner. Told her not to give the animal sugary treats. I had lines on this chinchilla for probably 5 generations back, and the chinchilla within, it was probably a year and a half, it was about 2.5 years old, had to be put down. And it was because of I have never seen rot in a chinchilla's mouth like this, because I went down to her house to see what was going on, because I wanted to check the teeth myself. And I've never seen tooth rot like this. But it is so important to avoid those sugary treats.
最后一点就是高糖分的食物比零食，为什么呢？因为它就是导致于加速腐烂牙齿与牙龈。他举了一个例子，他卖了一只龙猫，他已经有5年的记录，5代下来了，然后就卖出去很健康。不过1年半过后，他发现了就是这龙猫的整个嘴腔都是腐烂的牙齿，然后甚至腐烂到牙龈，而没有办法救，那只好安乐死。
Okay. This is kind of a passionate topic of mine, and that's craniofacial changes. So Maxine was talking about how we want the animals to be robust, and we want the animals, what we're trying to do is give the chinchilla the best version of its natural self through selective breeding. What we need to avoid is bringing in problems to the chinchilla that is not enhancing its health. And one of those things is craniofacial changes. And you can see Malcolmus Chapman in the middle with, I'm pretty sure that was either a wild chinchilla or a first generation chinchilla. So this is pretty much what they look like in the wild. So you can kind of see they do have a little shorter face structure. They have a tapered head in the front, and I'll show a skull of that in a minute. And a little bit of a shorter round body, kind of like what we're doing now, just in a bigger form, a more robust form. So for the most part, selective breeding thus far has not altered life function needed for the chinchillas.
主要就是我们要看就是这个头颅影响的一个形状。首先看的就是应该是我们初步认为应该是第一代或者是野生捕捉的龙猫原本的形状，头是会稍微有一点圆，可是还是长形的。那跟我们现在所培植出来要达到的标准也是一样的，就是稍微有点圆，不过还是长形的。你可以看到，就是耳朵到鼻子的距离是很远的，眼睛到鼻子距离是很远的啊。然后唯一的现在我们要把它培植好的是那个体格，整体体积就比较骨骼更大了一点。
So as mentioned earlier, chinchillas have adapted over 32 million years. I mean, they saw the dripping of the continents. The amount of time that they've been on the earth is incredible. But in the last century, and especially in the last 10 to 20 years, rapid changes that have been driven by humans have been noticed just to affect the look. Nothing to do with health, but just the look. Unlike natural evolution, which takes thousands or millions of years, we're trying to do it in a very short period of time. And we've seen other species what happened to them when we did this. It won't be any surprise when we reach the same level that the rabbits are experiencing now, or the dogs are experiencing now. But we have a chance actually now to make a difference and not go down that path. So that's why I'm so incredibly passionate about discussing this and bringing it in with malocclusion, because that is just one of the many things in that structure that we looked at that will be affected by making big changes.
所以为什么我们要谈到这个转裂性的培植，就匹配于狗的世界，他们会喜欢很多短脚的狗狗啊，没有尾巴的啊，还是混种的啊。那我们也知道，看到狗狗的生理这些就乱掺的一个最后的结果，就是很多狗狗活不长，疾病特别多。那我们在这里就想要把这一块弄明白，然后不要让这些商人去做这一类的培植，为了销售，为了要引起这个好看，而去把它培植的不正常。
And then also just touch on eye placement. So eye placement is another change that I'm starting to see, where they're set lower and further out on the head. And while it is visually appealing, and I agree, they are cute. These changes can increase the risk of eye infections and put strain on eye sockets.
所以他现在最常发现到第一个培植，为了商业培植而去做的可爱形状是把这个眼睛跟鼻梁的距离越来越短。
And then why I wanted to bring this up here is because pet buyers are what drive the market. So the pet owners, the ones that want the pets, are the ones that are driving the market. So that's where the change has to happen. Because if the pet owners are asking for it, the breeders are going to try, breeders, especially breeders that are really out to make a buck, they're going to try hard to give the market whatever they are looking for.
对，所以就我所说的，就是市场需求变异，而导致不健康，这是我们要提醒大家的。可爱归可爱，但如果你们支持这样子的培植下去的话，基本上10年 内应该会有更多现在没有预测到的一些病状，特别是眼睛、鼻子、嘴巴、牙龈这一块。
So for all these reasons, and some of the reasons Maxine said as well, it really highlights the importance of making sure that you are obtaining your future pet that you do want to last for 15 to 20 years. I mean, they become our children. I have many, many children. But you want to make sure that they're coming from a source that actually cares about the animal versus pushing them out of a manufacturing line. And so malocclusion, diseases, bad body structure. There's so many reasons why it is so important to buy from a reputable breeder and a reputable pet shop. I know there's pet shops in Taiwan, and I know there's some very reputable pet shops in Taiwan that are very selective on where they get their chinchillas for these specific reasons.
所以为了改善这个宠物市场，为了不要让这些动物受到不寻常的对待来培植它们下一代，而失去了这动物原有的本能、本性而健康的体态，所以我们就今天谈了这个话题。
Okay, so just really quick just to close up the craniofacial changes. So on the left is a wild chinchilla, and you can see we've already started to change the facial structures. This was developed by the pelt market, so the fur market. So on the left you can see it has a tapered head, and in today's domesticated chinchillas it's more flat. And this is very tied into the fur market. So the fur market has already started some of this damage, but it's up to us to kind of stop that in its tracks and make sure that we can keep the essential functions of the chinchilla there while we try and make these changes that we would like to see.
所以这里可以看到，就是到如今培植过程从原本的野生环境的龙猫原本应该有的一个投入，到现在培植场已经变化到右边的这张，是取自于很多年的一个造化。那我们是想就是怎样把现有的不好的状况把它改善，而停止它恶化下来。
For the sake of time, I'm just going to go over this really quickly. This is a 3D scan of a chinchilla skull. It's severe malocclusion. You can see how I can't even believe this chinchilla is still alive, to be honest with you. But you can see the severe elongation of the teeth here, and it's coming up through the socket. This is very severe. But the consequences of malocclusion are pain in the mouth, difficulty eating, overgrowth of the teeth, root growth into the eye sockets, and excessive rolling.
牙龈问题的后果就是痛、不舒服、有问题、进食。
Obviously, responsible breeding. If we have a long enough history and a long enough line on our chinchillas, we know if the gene is sneaking around in the background of the chinchillas. So through a few generations, we can get rid of malocclusion. If we prioritize the health of the chinchilla versus the look of the chinchilla, and that is where everything goes wrong. A breeder will look at the chinchilla and go, it's the best chinchilla I've ever produced. Yeah, it's got a little bit of mallow, but it's so beautiful I need to use it. And that is happening all over the world right now. And we have to prioritize health over profit at all times.
那怎样去避免这个？第一，刚才所说的就是有很好的培植筛选， 那不要说这龙猫体格所有的外表都很符合一只能卖的一只动物，那它有一点牙齿问题，那我们还是用它来继续培植，这个是不能接受的一个做法。那不要为了利益而损害到健康的培植，才是我们真正要达到的目标。
And what's important to mention with that is, with responsible breeding comes a greater cost, and people need to understand that from the pet industry. And just because you're paying a higher amount for your chinchilla doesn't mean it's a better chinchilla. But for a reputable breeder to do things correctly, it's expensive. I was sitting down with another fellow breeder at the national show, and he basically laughed at me and said, "Nobody does it that way. Nobody does it that way." Because I spend a lot of money on chew trees, and I spend a lot of money on dust, and I invest in the health of the animals versus shortcutting all of those things and then being able to make more profit. So if we really need to shift the mentality to so that and make people understand that health has value. Health is a very important thing on top of how the chinchilla looks.
所以他会很专注于他有跟其他的培植家去研讨说，他的做法，那其他培植家认为这个会花很多钱，花很多精力，那成果的丰收没那么高，以至于你要做得好，你就要下这个努力，也要下一个成本，所以不代表龙猫高价位就以至于它是很健康的，但很健康的一个龙猫需要很大量的资金去把它做出来。
So the next is a balanced diet. We are getting ready to do some studies through GCA on actual diet studies, Global Chinchilla Alliance. I know Charleston has done diet studies, so we will be, gleaning on some of the information that he's got. But what I ask from everyone here is that if you're having issues with malocclusion with your animals, please reach out to me and so I can see your food. Because one, I want to see if that could be a causation, because that will help with our research. But secondly, I want to help, right? I want to help you determine if what you're dealing with is bad genetics, or if what you're dealing with is just dietary issues.
所以第二个引起这个牙龈问题的，就是饮食的均衡。所以，要是你的龙猫现有这个现状的话，我们会希望就是跟我们联系的话，我们可以帮你分析，那食物这一块到底它进的食物，它的体格、它的状态，为什么吃了这个食物过后会造成这个牙龈的问题？所以我本身跟Shahna会做一个深入的交接，去发展这一块，更详细的去做一份调查跟深入的研究。本身也是，当然你们知道，我也是帮你立刻是一个开发人，那我有这方面的东西去跟他去分享，那我也想做好，就是一个能够达到全方位所有龙猫健康龙猫能够使用的一款粮，那它用的安心，大家用的放心，然后也一直有一个研究来证实为什么我们要用这一类型的配方。
And third thing is safe chew materials. Offer safe wood chews, wood blocks, houses, this poor stocky hay we discussed. In each one of my cages, I'm a big breeder. And I'm kind of an evolved big breeder in the United States, a lot different from how it was in the fur market days. I've researched and I've learned what chinchillas need to live long, healthy lives. And so I've incorporated wood shelves. I have wood shelves in my cages. I have hanging toys that have pumice on them. And then I have a floor wood shelf. And every single cage is basically the same. So everybody has, different things to chew on. But I also breed on wire bottoms. And sometimes I will go into my barn and there is a giant pile of beaver shavings on there. I mean, they chew the whole thing all night long, and that is what keeps those teeth flat.
所以第三个能够避免这个牙龈问题的，就是哪怕它是培植家、培植场的话，包括我自己培植场，我也是花心思去找放那些木质啊，可以给他们去咬牙齿、磨牙的一些器具，对，所以不是每一个培植场基本上都会想花这个钱去顾到这一方面的健康。
And we already talked about avoiding sugary foods. And then the last thing is a proper cage setup, and that's mainly just to avoid falls, because there are many malnutrition cases that are due to fall hazards. They break their teeth. Another thing is bar shaking. Sometimes the chinchillas can get a little neurotic and grab hold of their bars and shake like mad. They can injure their teeth with that as well. So injuries are kind of another primary. So make sure you have a proper cage setup.
最后2点，第一就是那个糖分过高摄取量，就之前有谈过了，就跳过一下。然后最后一点也是很重要被忽略的，就是一个好的笼子跟一个环境。就有些龙猫都是譬如说这个就不适合作为一个长期饲养的一个笼子，因为它基本上就开孔比较大，然后容易让龙猫去咬着它，然后摇晃。那里面，当然我知道这是外带笼嘛，就是暂时性的那种 OK。那如果长远来讲的话，就缺少了磨牙的器具啊，就笼子这边也太大，它们就会咬笼在那边啃。那你没有东西给它啃，它当然是啃笼子。那啃笼子的当然就会弄断牙齿啊，导致牙根歪曲啊，就这个问题就开始。
Okay. And then the last few slides, I'm just going to ask you guys to tell me if we're looking at healthy teeth or unhealthy teeth. Sir Charleston.
所以他现在想问大家看一下哪一个是健康或者是不健康的。
Healthy or unhealthy?
健康还是不健康？这个 actually。
这个文科学里头来出手。
Very unhealthy.
Oh yeah.
Correct. These are very severe cases of malocclusion. Again, I don't know how this chinchilla is still alive. The back teeth. Woohoo! The back teeth have grown too long. This happens when they aren't being worn down properly. That'll wake everybody up.
Time to wake up.
So this happens when the teeth aren't being worn down properly. You get these painful, spiky, sharp edges forming on the teeth. And the spikes can actually dig into the soft tissue of the mouth, making it incredibly painful. And the chinchilla cannot eat comfortably. As you can see, the front teeth, what's happening in the back of the mouth is also affecting the front. So it's affecting the incisors on the front because of the abnormal chewing that's going on. And then you can see where it is super severe. It is bulging into the eye socket at this point. The compassionate and selfless thing to do in this case is euthanasia. immediately.
所以主要是不健康的，然后它已经是上下都已经牙根都已经是长歪了，所以能够抹平的地方也真正制止不了它牙根往肋骨内去生长。
Okay, let's start with the top one. Healthy or unhealthy?
上面那一张是健康或者不健康，健康 healthy.
Healthy, correct. So I like this visual because it shows everything that makes a chinchilla's mouth healthy. So the root canals and the pulp is very clear, which means that it's not overly hardened. And this is super important because the blood vessels come through the pulp. The edges of the teeth are showing regular wear, chewing, nice, flat surface, which prevents the overgrowth from starting. And then there's no mineralization or overgrowth that happens. Mineralization is like you'll see it in the x-ray, it's like solid white. And it's basically excess bone growth.
所以上面是健康的，我们可以看得到它们牙根那边也没有多余的触点出来，然后它们咬合的地方是平平一个直线。
Okay, bottom one. Healthy or unhealthy?
下面
That was an easy one because I put top and bottom. It was a good way to show the difference. But yes, so quite the opposite to what I said is on this one, right? You can no longer see these canals here in this mouth. The bones of the skull have thickened at the edges. That can't ever be undone. The x-ray shows that the tear duct, which kind of cut it off a little bit, but the tear duct isn't visible, which means that the mineralization is starting to push up and interfere with the eye socket. Incredibly painful. This is where you start seeing a lot of the really bad eye watering, excess drooling. The condition of this chinchilla is also severe and cannot be corrected, and it's only going to get worse. So choosing not to euthanize will only delay the pain and suffering. And I know it's such a difficult. Oh, I'm gonna yell. It's such a difficult and painful decision to make when we have to euthanize our pets. But it really is the merciful thing to do for the pet that you love. I liken it to my mom going through really severe cancer, and I wish that we had that capability because the last couple of months of her life were horrific, absolutely horrific. And I wouldn't wish that on anyone, and I'm certainly not going to wish that on my pet if I can avoid it. So, thank you. I'm not loud enough?
You are actually. I just don't want to break your voice later. If you can.
I haven't yelled at Kurt all week. I'm good.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, because I will say this here. Okay. So, 下面的图案就是基本上讲实在的是没有办法阻止啊，它一直会生长，然后甚至于你会看到这张图案跟这张，你看得到泪腺，然后这里这个泪腺已经是没有出现了，它已经是被牙齿的硬度把它压着了，已经是或许也已经是断了，对，然后你也会看到它的那个牙齿的不平衡规律，壁皮上面的那个，然后前面牙齿，当然当你这里不能够咬合的话，你前面的牙齿自然而然也没有办法咬合。
What about this one?
This or this?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. They're healthy. But two things on this X-ray. One, I think the chinchilla was awake because you can kind of see here. Well, I can use this. You can see. I'm yelling.
Just there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. You can see right here where there's kind of drag. It looks like the chinchilla moved some while they were actually taking the x-ray. So that can affect how you look at the teeth. So at first glance, it could be like, maybe there's something going on here. But I think in this case, it was just from the chinchilla moving because it's following this same, see, you can see the pattern here and you can see the pattern here. It's following the same pattern. It has a nice bite. There might be one little itty bitty spot there, maybe, but a wood block, take that right off. But one thing that was, oops, nope, can't see that. One thing that was concerning to me is right here. I suspect that this chinchilla had an abscess. And this is a very sad story on this chinchilla. So the vet told the owner that the chinchilla had malocclusion and it needed to be put down. So the owner trying to, you know, because she heard a lot about when teeth are bad, you're putting them through misery, right? But you guys saw what those teeth looked like. They were starting to grow into their eyes. I mean, they were severe, they were bad. They needed to be put down. But in this case, so she sent that to the breeder, the original breed that bred it, and the breeder's like, whoa, why did you put that animal down? And so then that breeder contacted me and asked me to look at the x-rays. And I had to deliver the unfortunate news that, yeah, your chinchilla was probably losing weight, and yeah, your chinchilla might have had a little bit of drool going on, but it wasn't because of malocclusion. It was likely because of a tooth abscess, which can happen from anything. Hay can get stuck up there, and it's really easy to deal with at the veterinary office. So this is a very sad case where that owner was trying, based on information like me saying, hey, it's the right thing to do to euthanize the animal, but that's why I wanted to bring the x-rays so that you guys can see for yourself the severity that it gets to when you need to. I mean, there's that in-between point. You have to get people that are knowledgeable and understand there's that in-between point where you have to make the decisions. If they're losing weight, if they're uncomfortable, you can tell. And so that's kind of why I wanted to bring this slide up and kind of tell that story, because just like in the medical field, we have to be the best advocates for ourselves, and we have to be the best advocates for our pets.
所以健康照片，健康，但是有一些小问题，问题不是没有的。那这个 X 光片带出来也是一直要让你们知道，就是一个好的 X 光片跟一个不好的 X 光片，这个是所谓的一个其实模糊的 X 光片，就是动物可能在打 X 光的时候有动到，或者是医疗人员在打 X-ray 的时候稍微碰到了机器或者是移到了动物，所以导致有双影的结构。双影的结构就抑制于，this is not a drop eyes, it's because of the double shadow， 就是一个双影的移动的一个状况，所以就会产生。那这样子的 X 光片，靠经验来，我们知道是移动的，那我们只能靠猜测，因为它模糊了。那我们猜测的时候，唯一能看得出的就是可能这里是出现一点点过长，可是也可能是倒影来的，所以这个我们也不担心。主要上面这边没有动到内线，下面这边没有凹凸出来，那基本上算健康。但我们在这张印刷片上面，我们看到了这里牙龈肿胀。稍微深色了一点，对，所以牙龈肿胀其实没有必要去把它安乐死，就有可能就是吃草啊，还是在咬东西的时候啊，一些木科啊，是插到的牙龈，导致牙龈肿胀而造成的这一片出来，所以很可惜，这只动物因为兽医的错误判断。安乐死。那他找了 黑市场看了过后，它我们看了过后，其实这个就是基本上是没有问题的一只动物，而且可以can be safe， 就是可以救得到的。
Okay. Last but not least, healthy or unhealthy?
In the middle.
Need some chew toys.
They are fairly healthy. So yes, not quite in the middle, but I would say if I look at these, I said they're pretty healthy. But something needs to change in their environment, right? What you're seeing with the dark white is that mineralization starting to occur. But the tooth growth hasn't gone, it's not exceeding past its normal level. So when you see the mineralization, something's up, but it's not. Don't put down precious foo-foo. Teeth are nice and straight, so they still have a nice, good surface to chew on. I would suspect something to do with the feet in this one, and that's why the mineralization is occurring.
What would happen to this animal if the X-ray looked like this? For example, is it teary or?
You probably would see no signs. If it was, depending on the severity of it, it might stop. It might eat a little less. If it's like if it's losing weight, eating less. Just because if it's mineralized too much, then the teeth are starting to grow. It's like it causes that pain, right? So it's like pulling apart that hardened, because the mineralization is almost like a hardened bone, and so the teeth are still trying to grow at that same time. So I think with a diet change, this chinchilla is going to be perfectly fine. But you probably wouldn't at this point. You wouldn't know.
所以他强调就是这张图片，牙齿构造是算健康的，但这一片白以至于通知我们说，它的矿物质已经开始在那边结疤。矿物质结疤，以至于所有的结石的，就等于一个结石的状况。当你在牙龈那一边开始结石，那你就会以至于它没有办法很好的进食，而导致牙龈肿胀，这会是第一个现象。那它牙齿没问题，但如果矿物质这些结疤的话，牙根开始硬化，导致到牙龈影响了，结果也是有一点也是需要一些医疗的去减缓这个。那最简单的做法就是去看它饮食，它吃的东西的成分。可能这只动物它原本就没有办法很好的吸收矿物质，而导致矿物质残留在头颅这一块，或者是它能吸收很多，可是它不能好好的平均的散到整个所有身体部位的骨骼去善用这些，所以也会导致集中量。
Yeah, and one thing that also to notice on this is that the canals and the pulp are still really clearly visible, and so that really is an indication that the teeth are still pretty healthy. And so, but I like to show this slide because there is that mineralization that's starting to form. But being able to see the structure of the tooth is an important indicator that it's still doing pretty good. And also not, protruding anywhere up into the esophagus. Yes, ma'am.
Just out of curiosity, so how do you notice that there's something wrong with this animal?
You wouldn't. That's why you wouldn't. I stole this from a researcher, but you wouldn't.
矿 probably when you realize it is when the gum gets very sore and then it's irregular anymore. So that would be probably the first sign that you will be able to notice, but it will take a long time. When you realize that it has already been developed for some time already.
Yeah, that's the sad part.
That's the sad part.
That's
You
why it's so
cannot detect
important.
this early.
That's why the prevention is so important, right?
Does that mean that we have to take our chinchillas to the X-ray for a certain period of time, like once a year or something, to check out their teeth or health?
No. I mean, really, best practices.
Please.
And nothing will ever be perfect, just like with humans.